And there's a poll there in front of you for everybody, and people are welcome to join by video and audio. I think I started most people with mute to start with, so you can unmute, but if you're not talking, it's probably good if you stay muted. And so we got a couple of questions here for people to answer, and we'll wait for more people to come in.
Marcus is there.
So yeah, this is for those who haven't been in a Zoom meeting versus a webinar. Normally in a webinar, we have a panelists and then everybody else is kind of off in another region and could be promoted or put back into that participant region. But this way, if you want to be on screen, you just put yourself on screen by clicking on show video, or you can just show audio and we can see that you're ready to roll. I guess there's some way to do that. I might have a setting where I'm not seeing people show non-video participants. Okay, good. So we're a bunch of people are in there. Good, I'm seeing everybody now. So yeah, so we're showing a little poll just to find out where people are from. And while we wait a couple extra minutes, we'll start maybe 7:03 or 7:04. And the reason why we did it this way was that we wanted to have a discussion among us all. The idea of collective intelligence, everybody knows something, nobody knows everything, and nobody knows you better than you. Hopefully we can start playing with this as a tool. I want to thank Rebecca Montrone for the long-term use of her Zoom account for our benefit, and we really appreciate that. It's great. It really is in this day and age, helps us to talk. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't substitute for in-person things. We love in-person things, but it does help when people are all over the place. So we'll wait another couple of minutes, and again, as you come in, just let us know what county you are from, and then scroll down and you'll see, if not from New Hampshire, which other states. So there's two questions there. And it's good to see that some people from the state of disbelief. I appreciate that. So yeah, when you see, if you're all seeing that poll, I'm not sure all of you are seeing, I'm only seeing like 2 responses in total. So where
But when I try to hit submit,
yeah,
it doesn't submit.
maybe because you're like a co-host.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it could be that, you know, you
Okay.
can't do it because all I'm looking at is
Okay.
the interface for the
Yeah.
yeah. Hello, everybody. We're just waiting for everyone to come in. When we have a poll there, I'm hoping it's showing on the people who just showed up. If you don't see the poll and you just showed up, let me know, and then we can complain to somebody. I think there's a helpline to the state of disbelief somewhere. We'll see if we'll get an answer.
John Michael,
Yes.
I couldn't submit the poll either until I chose something for the second
Okay.
question.
Okay, so you have to answer both questions before you can
Yeah.
submit the poll, and that's
But-
why I included the other answers. I suspected that might be the case.
Yep.
So you're going to have to answer that you're from other, shock, disbelief, or ennui in question 2 in order for your poll to be submitted. So please submit question 1 and 2, or please answer question 1 and 2 and then submit your poll. I know it's a trick question. All
I
right,
figured it out, yeah.
somebody else
Eventually.
from the state of ennui. I'm very happy to hear that.
So you might want to explain that one more time, like, because I said I'm from Cheshire County, and then I couldn't submit. But
Yeah,
then Bill said, just go down and say you're from Ennui.
Yeah, so there's 2 questions, and you might have to scroll down on the right-hand side of the poll thing. And I apologize because there's 10 counties in New Hampshire, so it makes for a long question. And there's no such thing as a text question here in
Zoom.
in Zoom. So yeah, you have to answer the first question, then you're going to scroll down. If not from New Hampshire, which other state? And it gives you some other options besides just not being from New Hampshire. So you can still be from New Hampshire and be, for example, in a state of shock or disbelief or ennui. I didn't want to put too many in there because, you know. So after you answer both questions, you can hit submit, and it should allow you to submit. All right, so we're give another 30 seconds for people to finish the poll. Only 8 of you have actually submitted. Attendees are now viewing questions. 8 of 21, 38% have voted. No ice cream for those who don't vote. And part of the reason why I'm asking you this also is there's going to be a question later about, do you want to get connected with other people near you? So part of the reason for asking you this is if you want to get connected, then I can connect you based on where you say you're from, if you so desire. All right, well, I didn't expect to stump the panel at this stage of the game, but apparently I did. And while people are finishing up that poll, I'm just going to leave it up for another minute. It's 7:06, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. And so welcome to our, really, I consider it food resilience meeting, a discussion, and we're hoping that people will be in discussion. Most people are not on camera or on microphone, and that's fine for the moment, but I'm going to ask you to at least be on microphone at some point, because I would like to, at some point in the meeting, pop people into breakout rooms of 2 or 3 or 4 people, whatever it ends up being, so that you can talk amongst yourself about some of the things that you've heard, some of the things that you're doing, some of the questions that you have. So please consider, when we go to the breakout rooms, unmuting your microphone at the very least, and possibly your video as well. It's very nice to see faces, because non-verbal cues are as much as 90% of communication, except if you have a stone face. Anyway, so good, more people are coming in. About half of you have now responded to the poll. So while you're still responding to that poll, and you have to respond to both questions, there's 2 questions. You have to scroll down and also respond to question 2. Even if you live in New Hampshire, there are some responses that you can give that will not invalidate your first answer. It will only add certain details. All right, and so while you're finishing those up, I'd like to just say hello to everybody to this food resilience conversation. We have with us a few folks that are going to speak for a bit about what's going on in some of the conversations, but this is really, I think, a way for us to boot up further conversations, whether they happen writ large like this, or hopefully whether they happen in your county or perhaps in your community. And we'll talk about some of the ways that can happen, and you'll tell us, I'm sure, about some of the ways that you're making that happen. And this is all in a way to encourage people to get more active in their communities, or if they are active, to network with others. I'm guessing most of you are active in one way or another in your communities, but if you are not, then whether you are or not, to network with others closer to you, and we'll talk about a little bit of that before it goes on. So we've got with us here today Marcus Stewart Vanini. Wave your hand, Marcus, so that people can see you. There you go, and thank you. And we have Bill Rogers. Wave your hand, Bill. There we go. And we have Chris Longest. Chris, excellent, thank you. And we have Rebecca, who's waving her pillow there. It's waving very slowly, just so you see. And these particular individuals are going to be leading some of the conversation tonight. We'll start in a second. I'm going to end the poll here. It looks like 11 of 23 have responded to where you're from. If you haven't responded, see the poll in front of you. Answer what county you're from. And then you have to scroll down and answer question 2 as well, and then hit submit. If you only answer 1, let you submit.
I goofed, I guess. I sent mine back just filling out Cheshire County.
Yeah.
I didn't see 2 questions.
And-
maybe it's just that I'm too
And
old to catch up with these things. I
No.
sent it back, so I don't have two questions to fill
right.
out.
well, we're
Do
gonna
you want to resend it to me?
We're gonna go ahead and end the poll. And this is, where people are from. Looks like 5 of the counties in the state, or at least, let's see, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, all right, very good. And we've got somebody from Vermont, interloper. Oh, only kidding. Thank you for being here. And some from other states, perhaps. And then a few from 3 from the state of disbelief, 5 from the state of ennui. Welcome all. We appreciate you being here. And I'll get rid of that now. Well, it's all an experiment. So I thought I would ask Marcus to kick us off. Marcus is the person who, said, enough talk, let's get going, let's do some groups. And he really started the whole Voluntary Civic Action League thing. And have joined him kind of in supporting that. We'll be doing a lot more of that. But one of the first things he was hot on was the whole food issue, from I think last year when things got started. So Marcus, let me just turn it over to you, and just if you could share just a little bit maybe about yourself, and then kind of what got you kind of interested or inspired, I should say, to get this the food conversation going.
Sure. Thanks, John Michael. As far as myself, father, entrepreneur, former executive, project manager, driver, pretty much my whole career, I've been the guy that kind of gets things done. Not a big fan of the talk, much more of a fan of the do, kind of to John Michael's point. Because we learn by making decisions and doing, even if they're not the right ones, at least I've always found. As far as the background of the group, when things were, it's not like they're not full on crazy still, but when it became very clear that there would come a time, or at least the effort would be made for there to come a time where you have to have a vax or wear a face diaper to enter a store, I thought, pretty passionately, we need to start focusing on developing our own systems and ways of having food that are outside of those systems. So that was the initial real motivation. A lot of good feedback initially came out of that, including getting some classes going, which we have done in terms of, how to go out and forage, harvest, as well as some other things that have happened at Abenaki Springs Farm. But we felt like a tangible project that we could launch initially was, with a like-minded and values person, which is, Bruce Bickford of Abenaki Springs Farm. His farm is not 4 seasons, so we worked with him to basically develop a plan. And I could talk more about that later in terms of how we refined the model and where that is, but to take a number of the greenhouses to be 4 season. So that's really been the impetus and the focus. So when it comes to the action groups, probably, I'm happy to support all of them in any way I can be helpful, but the food and the education are probably nearest and dearest to my heart because they're tangible, practical, and I have young children and I need food. And I've never been a big fan of most grocery store food. And as I mentioned to John Michael, I just found out this weekend, I hadn't looked into it, but it didn't surprise me at all that the co-ops are actually all basically owned by a big corporation now. People think they market it as community, but it's all central control, and they buy a little local stuff to, put lipstick on the pig. But even when people think they're doing right by the local Monadnock co-op, it's the same old model. So what I really feel passionate about is learning to grow our own food and supplies. And, I think when you look at the glyphosate, what they're putting in the air, us coming together as communities and supporting each other and working and learning is the only way to go. What can you really trust that comes out of corporations and everything else? I think if you haven't seen it by now, whether it's the medical system, the food system, it's kind of all geared against us. Did I miss anything? I mean, I guess I would emphasize, John Michael, just what we talked about earlier is, initially there's been I would say in my mind at least, and hopefully others, a shift from sort of reactionary to this and kind of going back to that last point. So let's not engage with the fear porn, because it's pretty much all fear porn, and fear is the mind killer. And let's just focus on doing what's right. And what's right is supporting each other, building each other up with our different skills, and learning and actually growing our own food as much as possible.
Yeah, that sounds good. And so there's been, I know, Bill, you've been reaching out to some other farms. You want to just talk a minute about, because I know you've been working with Marcus also, and are in conversation with Bruce over at Abenaki Springs Farm, but you've been working with some other farms. You want to say where you're at with that?
Yeah, sure. There are a lot of people who feel like we do. The problem is, and it's not a problem, the challenge is finding them. I found a few. I have more to visit, but we need, I need to know what we're looking for as a group. Are we looking for strictly organic, as natural as possible, or do we want to be just farms that put stuff on the plate? But there are some good farmers around that feel like we do, and I'm waiting for a place to put that list of what I've found, and that's moving along. Myself, I've been a farmer in some capacity for 12 or 13 years, and I like to be ahead of the curve. I want to have food ready if things get bad, and we've got a great opportunity to rebuild a community, like what I think like it used to be. I help you, you help me. We get together, we have a good time, we get in the crops. You raise pigs, I raise chickens, Lori raises vegetables. Let's support each other. That's where I'm from on this.
All right. And so to that end, I know you've been working on a list of, shall we say, awake farmers. And we're not only, of course, encouraging people to work with awake farmers, but it's good to know kind of who's like seeing what's happening, and who may be in a position to be approached for different things. I mean, the 4-season idea, I think, is something that we can talk to other farmers about. There's certainly going to be a need, and I think going back to Marcus's point about healthy food, we can talk about food resilience, but at the end of the day, what's the latest thinking about 64% of COVID victims, all right, the deaths, I'll just go like this because but they had 64% had 6 comorbidities. You can believe that. I mean, it's not really a laughing matter, but it just shows you the state of health, which is also perhaps to some degree by design. And if there's one wonderful thing that's come out of this, is besides meeting all of you, and many of you have great knowledge, but it's also learning so much more from you and from others about what makes a body tick, and how we can maintain our health and ways that we can boost our immune system, which so far has been pretty functional for those of us, I think, who are doing this. So it's not just about those things going away. Maybe they should go away. The factory food should go away. We need to really have a different way of doing this. So we'll be publishing something in the not too distant future, some kind of food and farm directory, letting people know who's kind of awake and who's maybe not. But I think it's important for us to be developing relationships across the board. Chris Longest is also here. We really grateful to have him also as a member.
John Michael,
What?
can I just to go off, just Marcus, to go off that.
Sure.
I don't know if anybody knows of the Sigma Farm. I'm going to put it in the chat. Milton, this is in Sullivan, I believe, lamb and eggs and all that kind of thing. Of course, we know Walpole Valley Farm. You know, we know there are really wonderful things happening here. The Fikes, I want to have him on my radio show. Actually, he's, yeah, right there. We have a lot of wonderful people here. And I do want to say, I just want to make the point that there is a huge assault upon the farmland in this country. The capital gains taxes, when a person wants to, you know, pass their farm or their ranch onto their next generation and dies, they cannot afford it. I don't want to get political, but Bill Gates is buying up so much farmland. And the progressive administration wants to make a lot of this land conservation land. So where we are right now is huge. This is a huge issue.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity as well. So that's why we're talking. Yeah, I was introducing Chris Longus, and Chris has been a guest on Becky's show on WKBK, and also been talking to us some at Rise Up. And so, Chris, there's a few things that you wanted to weigh in on. Why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I think that first off, let's get excited about microbes. That's what I love talking about. When I'm looking at farm and food resilience, food security, and these kinds of issues, I'm really looking to approach that from a soil-based perspective. Trying to figure out how to convey the messages to individuals with their own gardens, how to utilize their soil in a more effective manner, and farmers with larger operations, how to get more microbial activity in their soils so that they can lower their cost of productions and increase the quality of their foods. I think that is really the focus that I've found that gives me direction and purpose in trying to contribute to this movement, not only here in New England, but literally all around the world. The regenerative farming movement is really big right now in terms of people understanding that we're all part of a singular cycle. As things happen to the soil, they happen to our food, and as they happen to our food, they happen to us. So that's my approach. I've been teaching natural farming methods of harnessing microbes for the last several years, with an emphasis in Korean natural farming. And then there's several other indigenous methods of farming that I like to utilize in my own farming and gardening practices that I love talking to and sharing with people. So again, thank you for having me, and I look forward to the discussion more about that.
I just want to add a quick footnote to Chris's work, because I really think the more I look at things holistically, what he's doing can really help. And I've found this from multiple people I've talked to lately. But for example, the cheap shingles they put on our houses now, they have arsenic, formaldehyde, and a bunch of other chemicals. What do you think happens when it rains on your house and then the water goes around your yard and everything? Now, so the only way you can really remedy that is through the stuff that Chris does, or from whatever they're dropping in the sky. I mean, it's one thing to grow your own garden, but they're coming at us from kind of so many directions, right? So to get at the root and really build the right ecosystem, you can do that through Chris's work.
So we're talking about, both supporting your local farmer, creating relationship with them, and also perhaps growing food yourself. So, and we hope to have you.
If I could interrupt, just to get back on what Chris does. And it's so, last time I talked with him, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to take a whole course in this. What we do in, even if it's organic gardening or whatever, there's such an imbalance, as I understand it, Chris, of things that if they are allowed to happen as nature intended, it feeds the animals, your kids aren't, and your dogs and your cats aren't toxic on the lawn, everything kind of melds. It's genius, but it's not that hard if you know how to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a really solid point. There is that we've been made to believe that farming is a something that requires an advanced degree these days, whether that's through mechanical engineering or agronomy or anything like that. But the reality of it is, when we actually take action with a microbial and a soil-based perspective, it's really just about following the process. In constantly inoculating good biology into the things we're doing, it has such a snowball effect that it's hard to mess it up. And so I think that it's important that people understand that we don't have to have advanced education and advanced training to do these things. It's just, it takes a little bit of understanding and a lot of observation. And that's really the key.
I think it's another point there is when you look into psychological operations, conditioning of society over time, we've all been told farming such a hard life, and why would you want to do that? When you talk to farm, yeah, it's a labor of love, but it's love and growing your own food. Same thing with lawns. People don't even realize that none of us, we were marketed that. And you can have food forests on your own land instead of going to a grocery store and paying a crazy markup and all this stuff put on it. It's really examining the narratives we've been told.
And it's interesting too, those narratives are almost self-fulfilling in a way. The methodologies that we use for farming have basically gone through a huge degradation of our soil. We've lost 70% of our topsoil in the last, almost 100 years. So to know that we're all working from a degraded start is a challenging spot to start, but it's quickly remedied and it's quickly reversed as we align with nature and we utilize the methodologies that nature would utilize to make a healthy ecosystem.
So Chris, while you're talking about that, I'm wondering if you can just maybe share a couple of things that maybe people don't know about, or maybe you haven't thought about if when they're looking at maybe their own gardens and production for themselves and maybe their family and perhaps their neighbors. Or what are a couple of things that that you might point them to that are that's maybe quick to describe, but things I'm sure you'll talk about more in your course next weekend.
So, I think that the biggest thing that I notice is this mindset that we have that there's only one way to do gardening or do farming. The mindset issue is probably the biggest issue in regenerative farming to address all of the conditioning that we've gone through. So a good example of that is when we look at a Better Home and Garden magazine, and we look at the way someone's garden aesthetically appears in front of us. It's always very clean. There's quite a bit of bare soil. There's not a whole lot of what looks like nature. It almost looks like a factory floor, very well cleaned and very well maintained. The reality of it is nature doesn't operate in such a sterile, clean fashion. And I think a lot of the biggest challenges for people when they're making the conversion from a conventional style of raising food to a more regenerative style is understanding that through this transition, you're going to have this time of what others have described as a bad haircut time. Your garden's going to look a little rough for a while as you do this because you're making a transition. You're shifting the overall purpose of your garden or of your farm to be one that accepts plant residues on the ground. So instead of cleaning up and tidying every corner, we're actually leaving quite a bit of biomass on the ground or in our garden beds to be absorbed and turned into nutrients. It's those kind of mindset issues that people are faced with in the very beginning that are challenging to push through because I think we all are really set on this idea that things need to be kept nice and tidy and everything needs to have its place. And while these things are excellent guides for us in certain areas of our lives, when we're dealing with nature and aligning with nature, the rules are a little different. Another example of this would be in the way that we till the ground. In one of our meetings, I had mentioned that we have, I think it's 15 states with a plow on their flag. But when we look at what tilling has done to the ground for the last 7,000 years, it's done nothing but degrade the soil, either through a destruction of the environment for the microbiology to live in, or a degradation in the aggregates of the soil, the clumping of the soil coming together, which allows for gas exchange and water infiltration. It quite often serves a purpose for us, whether that's getting rid of some weeds that we're trying to remove from our fields, or maybe it's we're trying to reset the ground for the next year's planting. But if we don't address the negative effects that come with tilling, we are really setting ourselves back quite far, and having to reboot the entire ecosystem in the ground before the plants even have a chance to really get off and running. So I do advocate for the use of tilling as a tool, but I think it's really important that people begin to understand these ideas of no-till, especially in their own gardens. We're able to if we look at that soil as a living organism, and we can begin to realize that we don't need to damage it on a regular basis to bring it back to some kind of stasis. Rather, we can begin to let it regenerate itself while we just move to that little area where we want to plant our tomato plant, or where we want to put in the rhubarb, and just spread the mulch out of the way, dig a tiny hole and drop it in right there, leaving all of that residue from the year before to turn into nutrients, to turn into ground cover. So those are two just simple examples that I see that are really mindset issues on how we deal with our gardens and our farms in general.
All right, now, if I can just jump in. Now, Chris, somebody gave me these nasturtium, right? You can eat the leaves, you can eat the flowers, and I have to plant them out there. But you gave me this, which is an input. As you understand inputs, this is like something that you do. So my thinking is you're like plants, 1 teaspoon per gallon. This is like something you make yourself with his instructions.
Recycle bottle.
A recycle bottle. Yeah, it's not Bragg's vinegar, but I mean, this is his thing. And it's like, okay, you do that and you put that on the soil. And as Chris explained to me, and I'm not the expert on this at all, I'm just learning, but you don't need to shock something. You don't need to go in with a big drug. You don't need to go in with a big correction. You need to subtly change things. Did
Yeah,
I?
So
the
what's in that bottle?
So inside that bottle is basically, it's a liquid that is carrying a bunch of beneficial bacteria and beneficial microbes. It's called Effective Microbes. It's a technology from Japan that has been spread pretty much all over the globe for a ton of different purposes, whether it's recycling, making recycled paper products stronger, whether it's removing odors from farming operations, or also plant health, human health, and restoring waterways. So in the sense of planting, these kinds of products that have microbiology in them are one of our most cost-effective ways that we can address any of our gardening and farming fertility needs. Basically, what we're looking at there is a bottle full of probiotics. And so the idea here is that we don't need to put on X amount of pounds of nitrogen onto the field every year. What we need to do is tickle the system with a small amount of biology. And we can do that in a ton of different ways, whether that's through coating our seeds with microbially enriched compost before we plant, or adding earthworm casting or earthworm juices to our vermicast compost teas, to our drills that are drilling the seeds into the ground, or if you're a home gardener, just pouring vermicast, which is just worm poop tea, basically, into the gardens in small amounts. But the idea that Rebecca's referring to is the idea that we just need to tickle the system. We don't need to come in with full blunt trauma to really push things in the direction we want it to go. We just need to give Mother Nature a little bit of coaxing. Now that does come with a caveat that we've done a little bit of work to the ground to remediate some of the issues that may have been left behind, as Marcus was referring to, some of the stuff that's coming off our roofs, some of the pollutants that are, if you live in the city, as I do in Keene, I've got a busy street next to me. I know we've got some pollution coming through our yard in terms of vehicles. But if you're addressing those things on a regular basis, then it's really just about, like I said, tickling the system, not giving it a big shove.
Yeah, I was gonna add to what you said, Chris. I was studying recently more some older architectural techniques and kind of how far, once again, the narrative has shifted us, but like nature, not a lot of right angles, right? And they call literally historically in older cultures, the way we build, angles of sorrow versus the round, and everything about our culture is right angles, or what they call angles of sorrow. And the gardens, on and on and on, angles.
Okay, so we have a question. Is this a seminar for people that have garden space only? No, it is not. But we just want to let you know that we're going to be talking about a whole variety of things. Exactly. So are there questions that anybody has for any of the people who have spoken so far, or comments that you would like to make? And you can just, I guess, raise your hand and we'll call on you. And Gerhard, okay, you're literally going to raise your hand. Okay, good. Or you could raise your hand in the raise hand functionality somewhere in the wherever it is. I can't raise mine, I guess. Go ahead, Gerhard. You want to unmute yourself?
Can you, I have a bit of a frog in my throat, but I'll try to talk clearly. Can you all understand me?
Yes, you
I'll be
sound
very
wonderful.
brief. I am totally delighted with this evening and seeing the emphasis on soil, because I believe the future of Earth depends on really rediscovering living soil and what that means. And as a footnote, as far back as 1960, with my wife, we distributed biodynamic food from a biodynamic farm in Pennsylvania on Long Island to people. So that goes way back. But what I think is very hopeful about regenerative farming and doing it right is, and there is a video around, and I'll try to find it so that it can be put on the Rise Up internet. I found it incredibly encouraging to see on a video how people bought some rundown land that looked run down and not lively. And by the right work of as little as 5, 6, 7 years, when you simply see with your own eyes how such basically barely fertile land can be brought back to life, and then what happens, and how a farm, a healthy organic or biodynamic or whatever regenerative farm, how they balance a little bit of woods and not having the big factory farming, and then see how life comes back. That to me is one of the most hopeful things for the future of the Earth. So I'm delighted with the program this evening, and I'm 92 and I don't have much to add otherwise, but keep going, please. Yes.
All right, thank you. And Lori, you
Can
had
I
your hand up.
comment on Gerhard? Gerhard, you just continue to defy all the odds. And we love you. You have so much to offer on every level in this whole holistic health and you know, this whole dynamic of what's going on in our world. And that you were sitting there and being part of our discussion tonight after everything you've been through. You know, I am just so blessed to have you.
All right, thanks. And Lori, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I don't know all of you, so I'll just tell you that my husband and I have had an organic farm in Westmoreland since 2004. We've scaled back a lot from what we used to do, but we're thinking, you know, with COVID and everything that happened, we want to keep farming, but if we do more, we definitely want people who want to contribute to the work. We've never done like year-round farming, but we have considered buying this thing called a growing dome. They have one at Stonewall Farm, and you can grow year-round in there without fossil fuels. And we actually bought one once, but we had 3 days to change our mind, and we did. That was 10 years ago, but it might be time to reconsider that if people wanted to contribute to growing in the winter. It's usually our time of rest, so it's not something that we would do without, commitments from other people who wanted to grow year round. And we only have a couple of acres, but we've been growing organic and biodynamic and a lot of the practices that have been talked about. And so in addition to that, as I told John Michael, I ordered a freeze dryer, which is this fancy machine that helps you have food preserved in a dry state, like people who go on camping trips or astronauts. You can preserve good quality food that way for a very long time. So that's something that Peggy at Country Life also has and does. And I think that's a tool that we can use to learn about and to share food for long-term storage, as well as, other methods that require, either canning or other things like that, which I don't do a lot of. I do a lot of freezing. So I'm trying to go more towards freeze drying. And when the machine comes, I'd be happy to, as I'm learning, help other people learn about what that is. But also, I wanted to mention two things that Vermont's doing that I'm aware of. One is at the Retreat Farm. They are growing more food now, and they have a pay what you can farm stand on the property, which I saw a couple of days ago. They had all kinds of food from local farms there, and it's a great way to help people who need support with food security. And they also have an organization called Edible Brattleboro, which is growing food in the Brattleboro Co-op parking lot and other places that people can just kind of harvest when they're hungry. So these are great ideas that, we can think about. And for people who don't have a garden or garden space or time to garden, this would be a time to really reach out to any of your local farmers and sign up for a CSA and get to know your farmers who are close by, no matter what their politics. I mean, they're going to keep growing as long as they can. And if you have a relationship with them, it's a good idea to start now. I don't do CSA anymore, but we sell to, neighbors, friends, and wholesale accounts right now. We don't do farmers market anymore, but, things are always changing. And I think, like I put out something in the newsletter through Rise Up to see if anyone wanted to learn more about farming and come and, help out at the farm. I got one response, but that person was very concerned about ticks, which actually were pretty difficult this year in the spring. So she didn't even come. But I don't know how many people really have it in them to do the farming and gardening. So it's really about connecting with the farms that are existing as well and supporting them. So I think that's really all I had to say right now. So thanks.
Thanks, Lori. Yep, thank you. So yeah, I would love to test the freeze dryer thing. So bring some food down one of these Wednesdays and we'll test it out. So Lolita, you wanted to say something?
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm the interloper from Vermont.
Good, welcome. Whereabouts in Vermont are you?
Yeah, so here in Vermont, we tend to do the food forest. And so I love the sweetness of this conversation because my partner, who is snoring right next to me, but is waking up now because we're talking, we do everything by hand. So basically, the food forest is We have every edible tree that you can think of on this property. We have grapes, we have bushes, we have berries, we have ground berries. We have peaches, we have pears, we have apples, we have cherries. We have dogwood, Coosa dogwood is edible. And it's a permaculture approach so that if you flew a black helicopter over our property, you would not know we had food. It looks like the Garden of Eden. And I just love every bit of this conversation. It's so sweet. And every pathway is winding. You know, there are no straight lines. And we only use what is immediately available. So we get wood chips, we make wood chip paths, and just like what was explained, you dig a little spot in those wood chip paths and you put down anything you want. So hundreds of pounds of potatoes, turnips, Jerusalem artichokes, parsnips, all go into our root cellar. So the root cellar and everything we do is electricity free. We don't have any machines at all. The root cellar has been in various books and documentaries, and you know, just 100 years ago, basically this is how Vermont was. So there was no store. Very few people had electricity. Root cellars were at every farm. And if you didn't have a root cellar, you had kind of like a basement that was a dirt basement, and you stored things there. So we also practice this really interesting thing of collecting seeds and saving seeds and trading seeds. My friend Rihanna is on this call in Ohio. We trade seeds. She has a great YouTube channel, as do I. We show how to do a no-dig system, where you basically put down cardboard, boxboard, and then just put manure, compost on that. And the first year you plant squash. We have hundreds of pounds of squash, and we know how to store it in dry closets at about 60 degrees. And I tell you folks, on less than an acre, thousands of pounds of food. And we do it all without a machine. So we invite people to come here and visit. We'll give you a tour. I do consultations. I just had a Vermonter here yesterday. Many people come. You always leave with seeds and plants and produce when you come. And I was the Vermont Educator of the Year in 2002, 2003, and then I started the Farm to School movement. I also have land in Grafton, New Hampshire. First thing we did was we put in 200 roots for asparagus, elderberry trees, walnut trees, various fruiting trees and nut trees. And we just bought that land in September. There's nothing more beautiful in my experience than being close to the land. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
Lady, we have a couple of people asking about how do we get a hold of her? And I had a question kind of,
sure,
you know,
sure. Yeah.
So, you're talking about a lot, but if you are, do you have opportunities to teach what you know, or
yeah, I've been teaching this for years. I was the market coordinator for years. I had farm to school buses came up the hill. I've been teaching this for years. I teach it to adults, and you can just email me, Lalita Karolyi. You can see my name, you know, on my little thing there, Lalita Karolyi, all one word, @yahoo.com. If you do social media, I have a Facebook page called Practical Magic Permaculture. And I share, you know, how do you bring in your garlic? How do you dry that garlic? What are the different varieties of garlic that grow in the Northeast? You know, that's just, you know, for today's work. but really, Vermont and New Hampshire are so incredibly abundant. We live in absolute paradise. And I think that we get distracted by, I try not to go on to the store. I do everything I can to not go to the store, because then I don't want to get into all the yuck of it. But basically, there's nanotechnology on virtually everything now. You have to be very careful. So be aware, folks, that what's turning in this cycle of civilization is we're being brought back to the land. And it is such a beautiful thing. And I invite you to come and visit here. My address is 3752 Densmore Hill Road in South Woodstock, Vermont. You can drive by, you can make an appointment. You would drive by, you wouldn't even know that this is a food forest, but when you come in, it's unbelievable. And we all can do it. It's the blessing of a lifetime to have like paradise step outside the door. Okay, so I'll put my address in the chat.
Thanks.
Yes, definitely put that in the chat, Lolita. And I have to say, I just kind of walked out because we live in downtown Keene. And I go off my deck and there's a huge trellis with a grapevine. And we have peaches and we have pear trees and we have fig and we have all of this. And we're in downtown Keene. We have plums. It's just a small, it's like, you feel like you're in an oasis, but it's like, wow. So exactly what you're saying, we think these things are exotic and they come from here or there, and we can't get them here in New England. And that's not true.
Thank you. Yeah, paradise. We live in paradise.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. That's very inspiring. And I think that kind of gives us a sense that, among many who've already spoken, there's so much to teach and learn about what we're doing. Heather says, I'm jealous. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we all want to move in with Chris and Lolita, but hopefully we can learn some of those skills. Good. So we're about at 7:50. I wanted to give people an opportunity to talk to each other a little bit. And so we're just going to try this thing for 5 minutes. And I'm encouraging people, I'm going to break you out into rooms of 3 or thereabouts. Some might have 4, but we're going to try this and just kind of see how it works. 3 or 4 to a group. And you can turn on your microphones and chat with each other and just kind of see how this goes. I'll come back and give you, if people are leaving, I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody. Well, hopefully some of you will just try this for a few minutes. And I think maybe just talk about what you're doing around food resilience or share some of the questions that you have around food resilience. Just get to know your neighbor here. So we're going to go ahead and just try this because it's technology and it's fun. And that way you're not just listening to me or a few others, but you can listen and talk to each other. So shall we try this? All right, here we go. 3 or 4 people in the room. All right, I'm going to open the rooms and please turn on your microphones and chat with each other. I think you have to accept the invitation to join the breakout rooms when you do that. All right, so I think I must be in a room with 4 other people that don't have their microphones on. Now 3. So Terry and David and Johanna, if you want to chat, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself? Or not? Can you hear me, Terry?
I can, John Michael. I don't have a camera. It's broken. That's why I'm not showing.
That's
And
fine.
my husband is here too. John is here with me.
Don?
John.
Don. All right. Well, hi, John and Terry.
Hello. Met you in Concord.
Okay. You did sound familiar.
Yes.
Indeed. How are you?
Doing all right. How are you?
Good, good. And Johanna, if you want to be in on this call, if you could unmute yourself. So what are you folks thinking about or doing about food security?
Want to talk, John? No. We're just getting started. We bought a canning
Pressure cooker.
pressure cooker today. But then just now John's looking to the freeze dry, and we're almost considering taking that back and starting with the freeze dry. And we've got, we just moved into our house a year ago, and so much had to be done on the inside. So our garden this year is not very extensive, but you know, our plan is to do this much bigger next year.
Oh, good. So so what do you have for a garden now?
4 raised beds.
4 raised beds right now.
Okay. And where do you guys live now?
Sanbornville, which is
Okay.
Wakefield in the Lakes region. We're over on
Okay.
the east side.
Terry, you're the one who contacted me early on and said, who else is around here? Is that you? Is that you?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you located other people?
I have
Good.
actually a couple. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And Heather, if you want to join the conversation, please unmute. That way we could see you. It looks like Johanna's not technologically with us, so we'll.
Okay.
Yeah, Melissa, I don't think was there. I found myself talking to myself,
Okay.
which is nothing different than usual, but I don't know. I'm new at this phone thing.
Okay. If you want to be put with somebody else, I can also send you to another room.
Yeah, I mean, I'm flexible. I don't want to bomb anyone's party, so
You're not.
Okay.
We can move you
I'm
anywhere,
flexible.
or you
yeah,
can.
anywhere. Throw me anywhere. I was talking to myself. It was sad.
Okay, well, why don't you tell us what you're thinking about or doing about food security?
So like the big thing for me is I'm in like a city housing situation in Keene, so I don't have any like garden space. But I love the idea of inside herbs. You like cilantro, you know, this kind of different thing. So I didn't know at some point, I know Rebecca has all this knowledge about herbs and all this, you know, like I want to talk about like something that we can do in apartments as well. That, I mean, yeah, there's YouTube, yeah, you can Google, but it's almost one of these subjects where it's like walking out to a snowstorm, not knowing when to start to shovel. So if I could put a face in like a farm and somebody I can like, hey, I have this question. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, like supplemental stuff, like herbs and all that.
Yeah, that's really good. And
Yeah,
Yep.
it's kind of
and
another element.
Microgreens is something else that you can grow at home. I've grown them before, not growing
Yes.
them at the moment, but probably will as the fall goes on, because they're very nutritious. It's not like you're
Right.
getting a lot of calories, but they're very, very nutritious when you just are essentially soaking up all the energy from that's in the seed before it all, goes to a lot of the leafing and the flowering and the fruiting.
Yeah,
all-
like I'm a
all-
big fan of alfalfa sprouts, right? That kind of thing. So
Exactly. So, hopefully there'll be some learning opportunities that we can, continue to work with each other in that way.
Mhm.
I'm thinking the freeze drying thing is definitely something.
I
Yeah.
love that idea. That was
Yeah.
the other thing too. Like I love the idea that it's lightweight. You can throw it in any purse as a girl or whatever. Like I just love that idea. I'd like to do a field trip, honestly. Like I wasn't kidding in the chat. I think it would be fun to go to her magical garden, and then you can fly the helicopter, John Michael, over to see if you can really see the trees.
I always wanted my own vertical takeoff and landing
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
do a drone. I don't know. I just thought the way she talks, she needs to write books. She needs to be like a Harry Potter #2, because the way she just described all that, I seriously felt jealous at the end. She's just very poetic the way she speaks. So that was great. I'm so glad we're doing this, because this is stressful for me. I'm a single mom. When I was working, I got $36 a month for food stamps, and being unemployed, I get 162. That's it.
Wow.
And my daughter works at Mr. G's. I don't get child support because my husband's from Japan, ex-husband. And, I do what I can, right? I walk the soup kitchen. But, my biggest thing is I don't always want money to define your health. Money shouldn't define your health. Meaning, what can you afford to eat, right? Just because I have challenges financially doesn't mean I don't deserve to eat well, right? So that's my angle. I'm representing the single mom that, does what she can to feed my kid healthily. And it gets really frustrating sometimes because my daughter works at Mr. G's, and she's like, Mommy, this lady had $3,000 on her food stamps card. And I'm like, $3,000? So I took that and divided it by 162. I'm like, that's almost 3 years of me eating, right? So, you know what I mean? And that's one subject, but the other subject is it doesn't matter what I label myself as financially challenged. The point is the land is being bought up. And there's an agenda, right? So how are we going to counteract that? So to me, it's like I lived in Hawaii. They have the most successful Costco and all the Costco's in Hawaii because the Ohana goes together, shops together, eats together, cooks together. And that's what we got to get back to, in my opinion. We need to get the Ohana together. All right, so I'll shut up, but you can tell I'm passionate, John Michael. You know my personality. I'm right up there with Rebecca. Wait a minute, I got a comment.
Good. Well, we need the passion and we need the excitement about new possibilities.
Yeah, I got a lot of passion. So thanks for letting me chat.
No problem. So Terry and John, how is your networking going there in Sanbornville and Sanbornville? Sanbornville.
That's a mouthful. Oh my God.
It's too long. We just
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah, are you connected with any farmers up there, or are you pretty much growing everything you need, or what's that looking like?
We have a CSA. It's Brazen Hill over in Barrington, which is for us, it's about 45 minutes away, but we really get outstanding food from them. We get our meats from them, but we also we live around a lot of different small farms. So we just take off and just go farm food shopping essentially.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're very fortunate in that respect. There are a lot of them, small farms around here.
Good. And do you happen to know, just out of curiosity, where those farmers stand on the, the pandemic thing and the, masking and stuff?
No, that's not something that we have done yet, but that's certainly something that, we can start doing.
Yeah. It's not the most super important thing, but it's also just good to know who's clued into what's going on, and it may just be, they may just clue in on, some of the food shock type stuff that's, coming down the pike or looking likely. Though I don't really like to be an alarmist, I think just being aware of what's happening is good. And it's good to be developing these relationships, because my feeling is, quite honestly, that, when we have relationships with these farmers, they're likely to say, yeah, I'll sell to you.
Yeah.
If
right.
push comes to shove, right? Push comes to shove, they'll be like, oh, I know you. And it really does come down to building those personal relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll get started on that.
So what's coming in right now in your garden? What are you starting to eat?
We should have some yellow beans by the end of the week or middle of next week.
Okay.
Had a tomato tonight.
Oh, a tomato. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yay.
Nothing like a homegrown tomato. Nothing like
I love those.
The flavor is hugely different from anything that you buy.
Yeah.
You forget how good they really are.
Yeah.
Just when they're really meaty and yeah. And
We have garlic, we have mint, sage, some Egyptian onions. Carrots if we get them anyway, it'll be another month, I think, just the way they're going.
Good. So I'm going to broadcast 1 more minute to all the rooms. I've got my neighbor actually is upstairs is growing stuff out in my yard, and we've got zucchini coming in. First time we've actually ever tried, and it's just fascinating to see the things come up, and a bunch of herbs and other things. So yeah, it's excellent. And all right, so people are coming back into the main room. So thanks everybody for. We'll wait another minute because we get 27 more seconds before people are going to be all shunted back in here, despite what they might want. But Yeah, well, it's technology, you know, we're just playing with this, folks. We're just seeing what works here. Yeah, let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and launch another poll for when people come back in the room. This one's only one question. I'm not tricking anybody. One question poll. Welcome back, everybody. Oh, you're all back. Thank you for taking part in that little experiment. I hope it was fun and fascinating. I put up a little poll here. It's a one answer poll, but yeah. So yeah, anyone want to share anything that they were talking about, or something heard that inspired you from what you chatted about in that little group, in your little group? Just go ahead and wave at me, or raise your hand on the Zoom console, or leave the room. Yes, Lolita, go ahead. Go ahead, Lolita.
Well, one thing that Melissa and I were talking about is the need for bees. So of like the priority level in terms of food security at this point, a lot of hives died this year. So Claude, my partner, is involved in going to other people's farms and gardens and helping them. And he found that the bees are having a major die-off. So one of the things that I would encourage when you're thinking about food is the food for the bees. So oregano, which can be food for you, or thyme, which could be food for you, or echinacea, which is medicine for you, or various plants like that. Have those as food for the bees, because if you want to have your trees pollinated or your zucchini pollinated, you need to feed those bees. And Melissa was also talking about, and I'll let Melissa speak for herself, but like being aware of when you buy land, are there towers around your land? Because that electromagnetic is what's affecting the bees. That's it for me.
Melissa, did you want to add to that?
No, not necessarily. I think Lolita pretty much covered it. But I was disappointed because I did look for the towers and there was only one listed. So you really have to know, I don't know what all the sources are to find them, but there's actually 2 others near us that I didn't know about, and they're actually much closer than the one I did know about. So just be really diligent about that. So.
Thank you. John Michael, I tried to do this poll and it didn't work very well.
I think maybe it's because you're a host.
Oh.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. It is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't. Yes, indeed.
And you know all my opinions anyway.
I'm sure I don't. But that's good indeed. Anyway, any other shares from your little breakout conversation? So I wanted to just give Chris an opportunity to talk about briefly his offering this weekend. So Chris, before we close up, we'll have a couple of other things before we close, but before we do that, do you want to just mention what's happening?
Yeah, thank you, John Michael.
Sure.
Yeah, so this weekend at Restoring Eden in Gilsum, I am having an introduction to natural farming and gardening class. And we're going to be talking about just basically how to harness the power of microbes, simple ways that you can harness microbes to input into your gardens and farms. So this isn't just about gardening. This also works tremendously well for large scale farms. My mentor ran an 800-acre macadamia nut farm with these exact methods and had incredible results, things that just were unheard of. Things like only having to add 1% of the nitrogen that the remainder of the entire macadamia nut industry uses for his farm. The water retention of the farm, just so many benefits that come from microbes. So basically I'll have a class with a group of folks where we're going to talk about 3 different methods of natural farming, where I will demonstrate how each one utilizes microbes. We'll have an in-class demonstration to show you how you can take the product off the shelf called EM1, effective microbes, and extend that to turn your quart that you buy into 5 gallons so that you can either do this at scale or at small garden or home potting plants at all levels. So outside of that, if you want to join the conversation about this, I have a Facebook group called New England Biological Farming. And I also offer consultation services if folks are interested in talking about soil fertility and figuring out ways that they can change the paths of their farms and gardens. So please reach out, please join the class. I will post a link here in the chat.
I did already, Chris.
Oh, there it is. Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'd love to see you guys there.
All right, thanks, Chris. And I will be there this Saturday with a friend of mine. So, all right, Heather, you've got your hand up. You want to go ahead and ask your question? You'll need to unmute yourself, Heather.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to comment on the bees because Sununu took 50 million from the CARES money to put in more towers in New Hampshire for 5G.
Wow.
So that was a nice, wonderful thing to help preserve the bees.
So yeah, maybe Lori, who you also had your hand up, maybe, thank you, Heather. And Lori, I know, has been quite involved in 5G research and activism. You have your hand up, and I know you probably had a different question, but do you want to also address that? How people might get more involved in that? Lori?
Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that right now. I actually didn't know about that, but it's up to each town that grants permits for the 5G small cell towers. And so the money that's being allocated, I would imagine maybe is for the fiber optic infrastructure. I don't know exactly what it's for, but it's really to be aware of what your town ordinances are regarding small cell installations and permitting. It's to call your town select boards or councils and ask if there is an ordinance on the small cells, and if not, find out if you can be involved in getting protective language in the ordinances, which is not easy, let me tell you. But I will say from our group, Bill made a great comment that I think the people who don't have gardens might want to think about, which is if you have neighbors or know people that have land that they're not using, they might be very happy to have you come and do a little gardening on their property. So you don't necessarily need your own property if you're friendly with people who have extra land. That's all I wanted to contribute from our group that I remember.
Good. Yeah, all kinds of options. Thank you. We have David asking, we're not all vegetarians. What about protein sources? Well, we did have that 5 Sigma farm, but anybody else have some sources that you're going to for protein? I know there's a couple of different farms that tend to have stuff at the farmers market in Keene on Saturdays. I don't know if they
definitely Walpole Valley Farms in Walpole.
Walpole Valley Farms, okay.
Oh my gosh, they're huge. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Miles Smith Farm in Loudon, we got beef and pork from them, and it was excellent.
What's that? What's the name of that one again?
Miles Smith Farm.
Miles Smith Farm, Loudon. Okay.
Loudon, yeah.
Good. Anybody know
My husband, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Am I breaking protocol?
Of course you're not.
My husband and I found, he actually did a search on Craigslist last fall for beef, and we found a guy, he's just a small gentleman farmer in I think Boscawen or up there north of Concord, and so we got a half a cow from him, and we're getting another half in September. So there might be small farmers that way, just looking up, people like that. And then we just ordered a pig from Archway Farm to tide us over until we get one from our friend Bill, who is in our group. So
okay. And where's Archway?
Gestating right now.
Where's Archway?
Archway's in Keene.
Okay. And
I
the
think
other
it's on
farm?
Arch Street. I think it's on Arch Street. The other guy is just a small, just a guy who happens to have some land.
Guy.
What's that?
A guy?
Yeah, just a guy. I know a guy. But if he has more, I can find out. He might have a little bit more. So I can find out if he needs to sell some and I can share with the group.
Okay, okay. So that's awesome. Anybody else have a question or comment? Just either wave at me or raise your hand if you're not visible. 609-288-8059. Did you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I get chickens from Normanton Farms, and that's in Litchfield. And I know they do other meats too. I think they also do beef and pork as well.
How do you spell that farm again? Normanton?
It's Normanton, Normanton.
You said it was Litchfield?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And you want to share your name?
Rebecca Vitale.
Oh, hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
All right, great, awesome. Anybody else have a meat source or any other question? Go ahead, Bill.
I am starting raising pigs for the future. I just had my first red gilt give birth today to her first litter. So we're looking at, but also in as goes with the theme, is we're looking at a different breed that grows more slowly, takes a lot less input, does a lot less damage to the land. They're going to be good pigs for us for a long time. And they will be available. We also do pastured Freedom Ranger chickens once a year. They'll be coming up. And I plan on doing that for a long time.
Okay. So we'll let that information, we'll definitely share that information as time goes on. A couple of other messages here. Flying Cloud and Allset has raw milk. And Jean Rudolph has a beef farm in Westmoreland. That's from Lori. Phoenix Farm, Goffstown. Farwell Farms, Harrisville, that Bill mentioned. Lucky 7 Farm in Washington. So I think we be really great if we had, you know, a map or some kind of guide or some kind of whatever. There are, and I know there's several out there. I don't know how complete they are. I remember looking at one, Bill, when we first started talking about this, a couple of different farms. I think NOFA has one, right? As a farm directory. But we'll take a look and we'll get the word out. And if people, you know, if you find farms that are, you know, farmers that are awake in particular, we'd like to know that as well. Again, we're not saying don't go to other farmers, but we just like to know kind of who's tracking what's going on as well. So that can just kind of be like an asterisk. They're tracking what's going on. Yeah. So Monadnock Table Magazine has a useful farm list. Monadnock Table, right, and that's available in a lot of stores. Is that right? Is that like one of those free things that you can pick up on the way out the door? Is that right, David?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have one more poll. It's just a 2-question poll. And this is about wanting to connect with others in your area, whether you are connected right now or not. If you could just answer that poll as it pops up. Would you like to be connected with more people in the area regarding food resilience? Early conversations. We'll definitely find more opportunities to do this. And what I'll send around a note with a survey, with our survey. In fact, I can put the survey right here. Food farm survey. If you haven't filled this out, please do. At some point, it's taking maybe 10 minutes right there. We sent it, if you've already filled it out, this is the same one we sent around a couple months ago, but we're continuing to collect data. We're not going to share your data with anybody, but it does let us know, and we can share in aggregate with others. And if there are, you know, if there's several people in a particular area that might be interested in, say, 4-season farming or whatever, then we can get in touch with you and maybe play a little go-between conversation between you and maybe a local farmer who might be interested in that. And Lori said, yeah, Lori repeated, if people are interested in partnering with her for four season farming, please let her know. And she, we'll get the word out to everybody as we talk more about this. So anybody else want to vote on that connecting thing? Melissa, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and obviously this chat is more about farming and growing our own food, but I just wanted to talk two things, and maybe this is for another meeting, but one is I had mentioned earlier, I'd love to know if people want to go in together on like freeze drying or vacuum sealers or things like that, so we can share resources instead of having to buy a $1,500 freeze dryer and use it just for ourselves. Like, is it, I don't know if they're resilient machines or how that works. And so the other thing I wanted to mention too is, fat is really important. And so I order ghee from, and I don't have the name of it right in front of me right now. But I order it by the case and I get a pretty good discount on it. And I've kind of stockpiled just a case of 12, but, we're also, I started a food co-op that I use, with, associated buyers, and they're not the best, but they are relatively local, as far as a business is concerned. So buying bulk stuff just to store, like beans and rice and canned goods and stuff. We've been doing that kind of slowly just to have stuff stocked. So just wanted to share that.
Do you want to put that information in the chat? Can you access the chat?
Sure. Yeah, I can. I'll put the,
That'd be great. Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else want to make any comments at this point? So yeah, we're just initiating or reinitiating this conversation after Marcus and Bill and others have started holding groups and meetings, and we're just I think the next step is going to be getting more information out to people and seeing who wants to connect locally and seeing what kind of support you might want to do, and also encouraging people to start creating their own groups, whether it's Freedom Cells or specific farm food resilience groups, more locally or perhaps in your county maybe, because I think it's really all about connecting as local as you possibly can. To that end, I'll just repeat again that we are working on a website to facilitate that kind of work in groups with, so you can go there, upload documents, have discussions, chat with each other, and even, do some project planning and maybe even hold Zooms through those particular areas. Because if you get a free Zoom account, you can at least chat for 45 minutes amongst a group, or longer if it's just one-on-one. So I'll have more information on that. We're doing some early beta testing. It's a pretty complicated thing it's kind of like an alternative social media type of thing. And we want to make sure it's secure and that people have the privacy levels that they want, and other tools that are meaningful in getting the groups going. So be looking for that. I'll be sharing stuff in the not too distant future. Any other comments or questions before we wrap it up for today? Again, we just touched base. When I send around a follow-up, I'll invite people to just let us know kind of what you're looking for as next steps for conversation, for resources. That way, whether you spoke or not, or whether you feel like your particular questions were answered or not, we'll have a pathway forward for continuing the conversation. Anybody else want to say anything?
No.
Kevin.
Yes. Oh my God, you fixed it.
No, you fixed it, but go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Took me an hour and 24 minutes.
Well, hello, goodbye.
Well, no, now I can talk next time. Yeah, hello, goodbye.
Would you like to share anything at this point? Kevin?
Only that maybe everybody should start, like you said, start buying and going to these farms, and they're going to understand what the demand will be in the future. If we show them now, if we start doing this now, we can initiate the future planning of what we need, what we don't need, and what farm can supply to how far do we have to drive to find a place to satisfy us. But I think the sooner we wean ourselves off of the grocery stores, maybe the better.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
good.
so excited. My microphone works.
All right, good, good.
Excuse me. Can I have the contact information for Lolita?
Yes, I think it was in the chat. I don't know if you can access the chat.
I'm on the phone, so I
You're on
don't
the phone. Well, that means you probably can't. Lolita, are you still with us? I think she is. She's maybe not listening, or she's muted. Oh,
Yeah,
Lolita, there we go.
I'm here. It's
Could you just repeat your contact info one more time? Oh,
yeah, yeah.
there-
You can email me. Lalita is LALITAKAROLI @yahoo.com.
Okay, great. Thank you. And what was your Facebook again?
Practical Magic Permaculture.
Oh, that's great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any final comments or questions before we wrap it up for tonight? So I want to thank everybody who participated, and thank you for being patient with the technology. Thank you, Marcus, for the work that you've done, and Chris for the work that you're doing. Bill for helping to be the glue in a lot of different ways. Lori for helping bring people together as well, and everybody for showing up and being heartful and intentional in putting your questions forward and in letting us know what's real and what's important for you. And we look forward to having the next conversation, because this is just one of many.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.